The backyard went quiet the second Grandma asked the question. "Why did you walk here?" she said, staring at me over the rim of her glasses. "Where is your car?" Sweat clung to the back of my shirt after 40 minutes in the heat, but suddenly that wasn't what made me uncomfortable anymore. Every relative at the barbecue looked up from their plates. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Then my mother smiled. Not nervous, not apologetic, just calm. "I gave it to your sister," Celeste said, reaching for her iced tea. "She needed it more." The silence that followed felt physical. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Across the table, my younger sister Noel slowly lowered her eyes while absent-mindedly spinning my car keys around one finger. The metal keychain scraped against her bracelet, scratches visible along the faded blue heart I bought with my first paycheck. I stared at it like maybe I was hallucinating. "Wait," my uncle muttered, "didn't Zara pay for that car herself?" Celeste answered before I could. "She lives under my roof," she said sharply. "People act like helping family is abuse now." A few uncomfortable laughs died almost instantly. I finally found my voice. "Mom, I made every payment on that car." Celeste didn't even look at me. "And your sister needed reliable transportation." Noel shifted in her seat but said nothing. "That hurt worse." Grandma slowly set down her fork. Her expression changed so subtly most people probably missed it, but I didn't. Confusion disappeared. Calculation replaced it. "How exactly," she asked quietly, "did the title get transferred?" For the first time all afternoon, my mother hesitated. The smell of grilled food drifted through the backyard while relatives exchanged looks across the table. Nobody reached for another bite. Nobody moved. Celeste forced a smile. "It was handled legally." "By who?" Grandma asked. Mom crossed her arms. "Why does it matter?" Because this was the first time anyone outside our house had heard what happened. 2 weeks earlier I'd come home from a 12-hour diner shift and found the driveway empty. No warning, no conversation, my car was gone. When I confronted my mother, she told me I was being dramatic. When I confronted Noel, she posted selfies in the driver's seat with the caption, "New car era." And somehow, after days of arguments, guilt trips, and threats about respecting the household, I'd started wondering if maybe I really was selfish for being upset. Now, sitting in Grandma's backyard while my sister jingled the keys I worked 2 years to earn, I realized something else. Everyone else thought this was insane too. Grandma pushed her chair back slowly. The scraping sound cut through the silence. Then she stood. "Then I think," she said, eyes fixed on my mother, "we need to talk inside." Grandma's study smelled like old paper and peppermint tea. The second she closed the door behind us, the muffled noise from the barbecue faded into a low blur outside. I stood awkwardly near the bookshelf, still trying to process what had just happened. Grandma sat slowly at her desk. "Start from the beginning." I swallowed hard. "There isn't much to explain." "There is if your mother stole your car." Hearing someone say it out loud made my chest tighten. I looked down at my hands. "I bought it when I was 20. The bank wouldn't approve me a loan, so," I hesitated. "So I co-signed," Grandma finished quietly. I nodded. For the next several minutes, the words poured out faster than I expected. The 5 a.m. diner shifts before class. The double weekends. Skipping trips with friends because every extra dollar went toward payments, insurance, repairs, gas. "That car was supposed to get me to my hospital internship," I said. "I start next month." Grandma frowned. "You never told me you got accepted." "I didn't want Mom finding out yet." The room went still. That answer alone explained too much. I told her about coming home 2 weeks earlier and finding the driveway empty. About Noel laughing when I called her. About my mother standing in the kitchen telling me the family needed the car more than I did. She said I was selfish for complaining, I whispered. She kept saying families share things. "And you believed her." I let out a weak laugh, after a while kind of. Grandma's expression hardened. I admitted something I hadn't told anyone else. Every time I pushed back, my mother threatened consequences. She'd remind me I lived in her house, that she controlled the family insurance, that I could leave if I cared more about a car than family. So I stopped arguing, I said quietly. I figured maybe I owed them. Grandma stared at me for a long moment. Did you ever actually see the transfer paperwork? No, I shook my head. Mom said she handled it. I only knew it was official because Noel posted a picture holding the registration. Grandma suddenly sat straighter. What? She opened her purse immediately and pulled out a thick manila folder. I received notices from the DMV a few weeks ago, she said. I thought it was a clerical error. She spread photocopied documents across the desk. My stomach dropped. At the bottom of one page was Grandma's signature. Except it didn't look right. Grandma tapped the paper once. Then she looked directly at me. Zara, she said carefully, I never signed these. Raised voices drifted across the backyard before Grandma even opened the study door. The second we stepped outside, conversations started dying one by one. Grandma walked straight to the patio table carrying the folder against her chest. What's going on? One of my aunts asked nervously. Without answering, Grandma placed the papers in the center of the table. Celeste, she said evenly, why is my signature on documents I never approved? My mother barely glanced at the pages before forcing out a laugh. Oh my God, seriously, it was paperwork confusion. Paperwork confusion, Grandma repeated. You're overreacting. Nobody touched their food anymore. Grandma slid one document toward my uncle. Read the transfer date. He frowned. This says 3 weeks ago. Another aunt blinked. Wait, wasn't that when Mom was hospitalized? The air changed instantly. Every pair of eyes turned toward Celeste. Noel looked up sharply. Mom. Celeste's jaw tightened. I handled everything because Zara was dragging her feet. I paid every installment myself, I said. And you live in my house, she snapped back immediately. People contribute to family. But that doesn't make it yours, my uncle muttered. For the first time since this started, people weren't looking at me like I was being dramatic. They were looking at my mother. Celeste noticed too. Her voice sharpened. You all have no idea what I sacrificed raising these girls. That car benefited the household. Zara acts like she's above everyone because she has a job. I had 3 jobs, I said before I could stop myself. The table went quiet again. Grandma opened the folder and pulled out another document. The loan paperwork lists Zara as the primary owner, she said calmly. I only co-signed because she wasn't old enough to qualify a loan. My cousin stared at me, so legally the car was hers. Yes, Grandma answered. Noel suddenly stood up. Nobody noticed at first because she moved quietly, reaching toward the table where the keys sat beside her drink. Then she started backing away toward the gate. Grandma's voice cut across the yard instantly. Put those keys down. Noel froze. Even the music playing from the speaker suddenly felt too loud. Slowly, she placed the keys back onto the table. Celeste looked around at everyone staring at her and finally lost her composure. Fine, she snapped, you want the truth. She pointed directly at me. Ask Zara why I really had to take that car. What are you talking about? I asked. Every relative in the backyard was staring at me now. Celeste crossed her arms like she'd finally been waiting for her chance. She was planning to leave, she said. That internship, she was going to abandon this family the second she got stable. I blinked at her. Abandon. You think I didn't notice you looking at apartments, she shot back. You wanted out, Zara. Grandma looked at me carefully. Is that true? I hesitated. Yes, I admitted, because I'm 22 and wanted to live closer to the hospital. Celeste laughed bitterly. Exactly, after everything we've done for her. What exactly have you done? The question came from my aunt this time. My mother ignored her and pointed toward Noel. Your sister needed transportation too. Families make sacrifices for each other. That finally broke something in me. Noel used the car to go shopping and party with her friends, I said. Meanwhile, I was paying electric bills. Celeste's face changed. Several relatives looked at her sharply. I kept going. You told everyone I was saving money, but half my paychecks went to the house. Zara, my mother warned. No, I said louder, you borrowed money from me constantly. Groceries, utilities, rent, I covered things because you said we were struggling. Nobody interrupted now. My uncle slowly leaned back in his chair. That's why you were always working overtime. Another relative looked toward Noel, and you've never even had a job. Noel opened her mouth, then closed it again. Grandma spoke next, her voice calm enough to make everything worse. If this was about family, she asked, why forge my name? Celeste looked away immediately. That silence answered more than words could. Noel suddenly looked panicked. Mom told me you approved it, she said to Grandma. She said Zara agreed eventually. I never agreed, I said quietly. Noel stared at me like she was realizing something for the first time. Then Grandma asked the question nobody else had connected yet. Celeste, she said slowly, did you take the car so Zara couldn't leave? My mother didn't answer. She didn't need to. The entire backyard understood at once. The car wasn't about helping Noel. It was about trapping me. Grandma reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. What are you doing? Celeste demanded. Calling my attorney. My mother lunged forward so suddenly, her chair tipped backward onto the patio. Mom, don't be ridiculous. But my uncle stepped between them before she could grab the folder. Enough, he said sharply. For the first time in my life, I saw my mother looking genuinely cornered. Relatives who usually stayed silent were openly shaking their heads now. One cousin muttered, "This is insane." Grandma calmly spoke into the phone for several seconds before hanging up. Then she looked directly at Celeste. The police can determine whether this qualifies as fraud. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Finally, Grandma turned toward me instead. Her voice softened. Zara, she asked, do you still want that internship? I stared at Grandma, barely able to process the question. Around us, the backyard had completely changed. Plates sat untouched. Conversations were dead. Even Celeste looked shaken now, her face pale in a way I'd never seen before. Yes, I said finally, I do. Grandma nodded once. Good. Celeste let out a frustrated laugh. So that's it, everyone's turning against me over a car. No, Grandma said calmly, over fraud. My mother opened her mouth, but Grandma kept going before she could interrupt. I noticed something was wrong weeks ago, she said. DMV notices started arriving at my address. The signature looked off immediately. She tapped the folder. I called you 3 times about it, Celeste. You avoided every conversation. Celeste looked away. I brought these copies today because I intended to ask questions privately, Grandma continued. But clearly this was never a misunderstanding. The truth finally unfolded piece by piece in front of everyone. Celeste had discovered I'd been interviewing for apartments near the hospital. She knew once I started the internship, I'd move out within months. And if I left, the money stopped too. The utility payments. The grocery money. The emergency cash she constantly borrowed. She transferred the car because without transportation, commuting to the hospital would become almost impossible. And because the loan still involved Grandma's co-signature, she forged the authorization papers herself. You were trying to keep her dependent, my aunt said quietly. I was trying to keep this family together, Celeste snapped back. No, Grandma replied, you were trying to keep control. That landed hard. Noel suddenly started crying. I didn't know, she said shakily. Mom told me Grandma signed everything. She said Zara was overreacting. I looked at my sister for a long moment. For the first time since this started, she actually looked ashamed. Meanwhile, arguments were breaking out across the backyard. You let Zara pay household bills. She's been carrying this family for years. Why didn't anyone say anything sooner? One aunt finally admitted the truth nobody wanted to acknowledge. "We all noticed," she said quietly. "It was easier not to get involved." That hurt almost as much as the car. I looked directly at my mother. "You called me selfish for wanting my own life," I said. "I paid for that car, I paid your bills. I gave up opportunities because every time I tried to move forward you made me feel guilty for it." Celeste's expression hardened again, but the power behind it was gone now. Grandma stood slowly. "You didn't protect this family," she told her daughter. "You used your daughter." Nobody defended Celeste after that. Not one person. Within the hour, Grandma had already contacted both her attorney and the DMV about reversing the transfer. My uncle offered to help gather documentation if the case escalated legally. Then came the moment I never expected. Noel walked over holding the keys. She didn't speak at first, she just placed them carefully into my hand. The metal felt strangely heavy. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Across the yard, Celeste watched silently while her entire version of the family collapsed around her. Things changed fast after that. Grandma cut my mother off financially until the investigation was resolved. Relatives who normally avoided conflict stopped answering Celeste's calls altogether. And 2 weeks later, I moved into a small apartment 15 minutes from the hospital. Grandma helped with the deposit using a savings account she'd secretly built for me over the years. "For when you were finally ready to leave," she told me. The first morning I drove my restored car to my internship. I sat in the parking garage for nearly 10 minutes just holding the steering wheel. Not because of the car. Because for the first time in my life, nobody could take my future away and call it love. Months later, Noel got her first real job. Some relatives slowly rebuilt relationships with me. Others stayed distant out of embarrassment. As for Celeste, people still spoke to her carefully, like they were seeing her clearly for the first time. And the last time I saw my mother standing in that driveway, Celeste wasn't holding the car keys anymore.